Good, good.
We're good.
All right, well, good morning. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors, January 23rd, 2024, here in Coachella. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Yes, good morning. President Powell
Here.
and Vice President Estrada will be absent from today's meeting. Director Bianco,
Here.
Director Aguilar,
Here.
and Director Nelson. We will notate his arrival time when he arrives.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any changes or adjustments to the agenda for today?
No, sir.
I'm not aware of any. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment at this time? Don't see any public here. Okay. This brings us to the consent calendar. We have items 5A through K. I don't see anything on there. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passed 3-0. Okay. See, we can do this. 7A. We have an ordinance, 1442, changing employment classifications. Chris,
Yeah.
good morning.
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. So this is a yearly ordinance that HR puts out with seeking the board's adoption. This is amending ordinance number 1442 from last year to the new 1442.1. You may recall last year about this time there was significant changes in the ordinance because we removed a lot of the redundancies from the MOU. Now that those are out, you'll note on the red line there was actually very few changes. So the lion's share of the changes here are just updates to the classifications themselves that are at the district, as well as the salary schedule for those classifications. Just want to note that you'll see that there was one renaming of a classification, one we moved from CVWDEA to asset, another addition, but at no time did we add any more than the 570 full-time employees that we have allotted. That's basically my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Chris, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Under budget impact, it says there's no budget impact this year because we've included the COLA, but it says any additional costs will be budgeted in the following year. What additional costs are you talking about?
So any of the changes to the budget would be eaten up by existing vacancies. So if we fill positions as we go forward, then those will be updated in next year's budget.
Okay. Okay. I move approval.
I'll second.
Fair enough. Good. Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Sorry. It's an ordinance.
Oh, it's an ordinance. Yeah, roll call vote, please.
Thank you. President Powell,
Wow, you've earned your keep already. That's a yes.
And I'm still on the hook, apparently.
Director Bianco,
Aye.
and Director Aguilar.
Aye.
Thank you.
That
3-0.
passed 3-0. I know, I saw that when I started the item too, and I forgot. It's amazing how fast it goes. 8A, engineering.
Armando.
This is the high bids on Warp 7 aeration improvements.
Yes,
Yeah.
these are. Good morning, President Powell,
Morning.
members of the board, audience, fellow staff. My name is Armando Rodriguez, for the record, with the engineering department. The purpose of this board is to seek 3 authorizations. One is to reject all bids for the Warp 7 aeration improvements project, specifications number 2022-24. Second is to authorize general manager to execute a task order with Jacobs so we can modify the design and provide hopefully a reduced scope at a lesser cost. And then also to approve solicitation of bids for this modified reduced scope. And then in addition to that, there is a additional escalator for the Lone Star proposal to keep the cost all the way to allow us to bid, so they can hold the cost. It's about $72,000. So part of that solicitation of bids is also to allow us to continue with Lone Star at that additional cost. As you may recall, there's three main drivers for this project. One is to replace aging infrastructure on the blowers. They're about 28 years old. They're out in the elements, and they're past their prime. Also, the other main driver is to replace the 4,160 volts with medium voltage. This will allow our staff to respond to emergencies and actually be able to work on the equipment. Right now, we can't. We have to outsource this. But then for me personally, the most important part is also to prep this plant for current and future regulatories. The way we design it now works for our permit, and it will continue to work for more restricted as the regulatory agencies look at our process for more optimizations and better handle. I'll stop here to see if there's any specific questions, or I can continue with the presentation.
Go ahead. I was just,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, why don't we do this on every project? Get the scope more focused so that it's less costly, but that's probably not a question for you.
Yeah, we try to do the value engineering on every project, and I think Mecca Lift Station, when I get to that presentation, we'll be able to share some of that value engineering we have done, even though we might not got the result that we wanted. But yes, this project was first advertised in October. We did receive bids in December, and the bids did come out to be $30 million, and we did not expect that. We were actually quite surprised. We really reviewed the scope, and we really thought that how can we still keep with the three main drivers, but still get the scope done? And I think we can do it. But it's going to require redesign, and that's the reason for the Jacobs task order. So again, we're asking for three authorizations today: is reject all bids, issue a task order with Jacobs at an amount of $464,921, modify the scope, but still keep with the three drivers I just mentioned, and then third is to authorize us to put the project out to bid with a reduced scope, and then also keep in mind that we have a Lone Star pricing to hold our pricing through March 2025. Like I stated, I think it was a surprise for us, but not really, because we did have the IXTP project back in December, and we owned December 2022, where it came in higher than expected. We bid it, we reduced the scope, we bid it out, and we came out about the same also. But I have also talked to other agencies, like other comrades, myself, like, what are they doing? Are they experiencing the same thing we're experiencing? And Inland Empire Utilities Agency just awarded a project here in January, and same thing. They expect it to be one cost, but it came out a lot more.
Yeah, I know. We probably all figured that these things were going to happen, but from going from 15 to 30 million, double would really change our CIP. We would have to, probably, if we decided to do this, we would have to take it away from another project. $15 million is a lot of money. We're not talking 1 or 2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Imagine
absolutely.
doing this. That's a big deal.
Is the expectation to get back down to 15?
The expectation is to get down to a 20, 22. That's our new horizon. And yes, we are currently looking at the CIP now in regards to how those pressures, financial pressures, affect projects. So we are looking at priorities in regards to what we got to do, because there is limitations here.
I would say if that is going to be the new normal, and we're going to see this in all these projects, then we're going to have to start looking at how do we stretch some of these things out a little bit, because we can't go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% over budget on all these projects. We just can't afford it.
Definitely.
That is true. Or 100%.
Armando, if I may, just because I think it's a question that hasn't been asked, that should be asked. None of this downscoping will impact our ability to provide recycled water to those customers that are waiting, correct?
Absolutely. The answer to your question is not going to impact. That's the goal. The goal is to continue with the operation efficiency that we're trying to achieve at a reduced scope. Most of the work that we're looking at is to redesign the building, make it smaller, maybe even look at pre-manufactured buildings that might be more cost-effective than actually a masonry building. We're also looking at our SCADA and telemetry and to see if we can optimize what we have existing and not necessarily just do new, but can we work with what we have? I think the belt is very, very, very tight, and I think we can get there. It's just a matter of one additional step. And yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could bring you a project that said let's award at 18, 20. I would go for 20. But yes, for me, seeing these pressures, financial pressures at this rate, at these percentages, it just, for me, my caution is let's hold, let's rework, let's rethink about it, but achieve the main drivers that we want to optimize our operations.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, is there a motion to approve this item, which includes 3 steps?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah. Good luck. Kind of is a big deal. Yeah. 8B, Carrie Oliphant, good morning.
Good morning. So this item is to authorize the general manager to execute a professional services agreement with West Yost and Associates in the amount of $1,141,191 for the evaluation of options to comply with California's proposed Chrome 6 maximum contaminant level. There's also some additional expenditures in the amount of $87,000, so it brings the total cost of this request to $1,228,251. Staff plans to spend approximately $787,000 this year, and then the remaining $440,000 next year. I do want to point out, if we move forward with this study, there's a pipe loop study component, and that's not included in this cost because we don't know what that looks like exactly, because we have to put together a plan. We have to get DDW to approve it. We're thinking it's in the range of $300,000, but once we have those details, we would bring that back and ask for that authorization separately. So I know this report was very detailed, but I am prepared to hit some highlights if you want me to continue.
Sure.
Okay.
Can you remind me, and it's probably in your report, but are we locked in at 10 now, or is there some question about whether that's going to be
Yeah,
lower?
it's a draft rule, and they are proposing 10, but it hasn't been put into effect. Like the final rule hasn't been put into effect. So we're hoping to hear in February as to what that timeline might look like. And what we've heard is the earliest it might go into effect is July, the latest October. But it's not set yet.
So there's no competing number with, I mean, there's 10 or something else. It's
Right,
They're just talking about 10.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what's the real big difference? Because we spent a lot of money on this, what was it, 6 or 7 years ago, or 10 years ago?
10 years.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 2014, yeah. So so back in November of 2017, there was this 2-month study that was conducted. It was a demonstration study in ID8, our ID8 system, the Sky Valley system, where we used the stannous chloride, injected that. Not all the questions were answered during that demonstration study. And then there were, issues with the regulation where they got stopped and things kind of got put on hold, and nobody continued doing any studies or research. And so now all of a sudden it's 5 or 6 years later, and they're coming out with the proposed draft rule, and there's still not enough information on whether stannous chloride is going to be acceptable by the regulators. So they've given us approval a conditional approval to perform a full-scale demonstration study. But stannous chloride is not considered a best available technology yet. So what we want to do is kind of take two parallel paths. We want to do the demonstration study, which includes the pipe loop study, because they want to see how the tin and the chromium react with the types of pipes in our system, as well as in the homes, in the premise plumbing. And so while we're doing that, we also want West Geos and Associates and their subconsultants to update the plan that we did in 2015. It was the Domestic Water Source of Supply and Treatment Study. We want them to update that as well with, the latest information on all of the best available technologies, as well as help us look at maybe there's some non-treatment type things that we can do operationally, where we can look at where we don't have chromium, and is there a way to drill larger wells and transfer that water to different zones and things like that. So, sorry, talking with my hands. So that it's a very we're hoping it's a very comprehensive study.
Carrie, will this work bias the information that's needed to submit a network plan for March? It seems like a really tight schedule, tight timeframe.
We've asked for an extension. I mean, we previously asked for an extension. They wanted it by November. We asked for March, so I think we could go back and just ask for another
Okay,
extension
good.
if it's not going to work.
Yeah, it seems tight. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Is stannous chloride an approved, use in domestic water systems?
Not that I'm aware of. Not here in California. Not by the regulators. I know there was some talk about somewhere in the East Coast or Minnesota where they use it as like a corrosion inhibitor, but I've heard different mixed items on that.
So we have a special use permit for that Sky Valley system?
Yeah, it's a conditional approval, but we have to submit the work plan and show them, what the dosage is going to be and what, how often we're going to monitor, and they want to see results in different parts of the system.
Yeah, so I equate it to, chlorine, approved, everybody uses it, how does the where does stannous chloride stand in that type of regulation? And apparently it's not approved.
It's not approved, no. They have some questions. DDW still has some questions about it.
Okay.
And this project is intended to help answer those questions.
Yes, the demonstration study is the end result is to hopefully answer those questions. What happens to the tin? What happens to the stannous in the system? And how it reacts or works with chlorine.
Yeah, if we're able to get Division of Drinking Water's approval for this, it will benefit not only CVWD, but a number of other smaller agencies that have a similar problem but don't necessarily have the financial resources to go all out like we were considering 10 years ago. I mean, that was a significant capital improvement. And the study that we'll do in conjunction with this is to look at those alternatives to, if we can't get Stannous approved, at least we can avoid the solution we had last time. Sorry.
I know. I mean, it was the point I was trying to get at, is that we spend a lot of money and everyone,
Almost awarded.
everyone, a lot of water districts benefited from us spending that money and doing that research, and we're doing it again. But I guess, I don't know, I don't see another solution.
Well, the money we spent was for the design of that massive treatment
And weren't we
system.
the first ones to figure out that this stannous chloride works? And that
Well-
there was another way to treat it instead of spending the $1 billion or $500 million that we first thought it was gonna?
There have been some other agencies, like in Dixon, California, and I think Watsonville, that have tried it and pilot tested it. So one of the sub-consultants, Corona Environmental, they've worked with those agencies as well, so they have some additional data. You know, you have to get into the specifics of like what their water quality is and how similar is it to ours and things like that. City of Indio and City of Coachella have also partnered or are hiring Corona. So it's going to be more of a kind of a Coachella Valley approach. So, and City of Coachella has some grant funding that they've received, so, you know, we're looking at trying to partner and make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and that we're all working together and spending the money as efficiently and getting results as efficiently as we can.
Yeah.
So in 2018, there was a original research report about a full-scale demonstration testing
Right.
for that. Was that not enough done in that?
Correct. It did not adequately address what happens to the tin. Like, does it accumulate on the pipes? When the chlorine comes into contact with it, does it does the chromium reoxidize back to
Hexavalent form.
to chromium-6? And there wasn't any data on what happens in the homes, on the premise plumbing.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So AWWA doesn't have like a standard for that either?
No,
All
sorry.
right, I'll move approval of the item.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. C is the award construction contract to Pacific Hydrotech. Armando again, good morning.
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. And the purpose of this request is to seek authorization to award a construction contract with Pacific Hydrotech Corporation as the lowest responsive bidder in the amount of $8,256,900, and also execute a funding amendment to the infrastructure project funding agreement with the County of Riverside for an additional amount of $1 million for the funding. In addition, we are seeking approval for soft cost to help us do the construction, both on the consultant sides, on Dudek to continue their engineer services during construction, but also soil testing with NV5, and then also seek approval for inspection, project management, and project contingency of 5% in the amount of $415,000 for a total ask of $9,722,557. As you know, the Mecca is near the intersection of Avenue 66 and Hammond Road, serves the community of Mecca, and it pumps all its waste, all this regional waste over to Ward 4. The project includes much needed reinvestment to the aging infrastructure we have now. We do have concerns with resiliency and redundancy, and specifically with emergency storage, and also specifically when there's peak flows. I believe, in my opinion, it's pretty much at its capacity, and so we need a reinvestment, not only because it's aged, but because it's time. The project will be funded through not only, like I said, the ARPA funding of $3 million, but we had to ask the county for an additional amount because we did see that the bids came in a little bit higher than expected. And they were able to give us a email commitment of $1 million with knowing that we were going to do an amendment to the original agreements for a total contribution of $4 million. And then the other funding source will be the sanitation capacity charge. We have about $22.1 million available, and so we'll be funding $5.6 million of it. Would you like a presentation, or if there's any specific questions I can ask at this point?
So the whole project's cost is 10.7?
The total project cost, including design, it's about this amount. The cost for construction to take this to completion is $9.7 million. And
So you originally put 5.6, is that correct? 5.6 down when we were doing our CIP?
our initial engineer's estimate for the construction was 5.6. We thought that was the cost.
So this one is double.
So this one, it's increased as well.
Yeah, so it's because the total cost is 10.7. It's not, because the county's putting in the million.
It's,
9 points.
no, it's 9.7. We have 4.1 in ARPA funding with, we initially had 3. The county gave us an additional $1 million. And then we're going to put ARPA funding of 5.6. I mean,
Or all-
sanitation
Yeah,
charge of 5.6.
Yeah, 5.6.
We did put the project out to bid in November. We put out the project to bid in July. We did receive bids in November. The bids range from 8.2 to 9.8. A little different than the project I just brought to you before. We did this design right through when we were seeing the IXTP plant, and we saw the costs escalating. So we removed from this project scope all the frontage improvements. We also decreased the hardscape improvements, so we minimized the amount of concrete and asphalt and that could be there. And then we really looked at the pumping capacities and try to really right size so that we don't go really low, and looked at projections. So because we wanted to right size for future capacity, but those pumps have a drastic cost effect to the MCC and the generator. And so we're able to do that scope diminishing, just exactly what we want to do now with Ward 7 iteration, because we were concerned when we were seeing these bids that costs were creeping and creeping, and then all our sister agencies were also seeing the same. So our recommendation is I think we already done the scope decrease. Yes, the cost does come out higher than we expected, but we got good partnering with the county in addition for them contributing. There is a need in regards to development out there that wants to connect. I'm sorry, Kate, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that there's the development component, so the cost, the funding mechanism that CBWD is using is the sanitation capacity charge. So it's the fees we collect from developers. So while I recognize that the costs are higher than what was in the CIP from last year, it doesn't have an impact on rates because we're using the developer fees that we've collected and
Restricted funds.
right, restricted funds, and then we're using the 4.1 million from the county in grant funds. So I just wanted to make that point, if that helps.
But it does affect future sanitation capacity charges because we're using probably more than we were thinking about in terms of, you know, pulling off of those funds in there. So those have to be replaced, so it's not as if, it's not gonna affect rates, but it will affect future
Right.
costs in there.
No, and I'm not discounting the higher costs and trying to excuse it in any way. I just wanted to make it clear for this project because I know that is a concern. And
Yeah.
with both of these coming in higher today and us having this conversation, you know, it starts, I'm sure, making you think like, where are the rates going?
Yeah, and when it gets to developer fees, there's no reserve levels that require them to be replaced. The calculation for the developer fees really have to do more with how our costs for treatment escalate,
Like this, right?
like this. But if there's no funds in the kitty, then there's no support we can provide.
Exactly.
And then the charges go to the developer.
Yeah,
You're right.
that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it still leaves less funding
Exactly.
available for
Yeah.
future projects.
But all of the expenses from this restricted fund get reviewed by the builders, Desert Valley Builders Association. Every year, we have to give them a summary of what we did with the money. And so there is oversight from the community as well to make sure that they can support or at least not object to what we're doing with the funds.
Yeah, I don't think that we're questioning that this is not needed. I think this is really needed. I mean, no matter what it costs, I mean, this is really needed. But I think we're just kind of in shock from the last one and then this one, where we're just thinking, I think we're gonna start seeing this is gonna be a pattern that we're gonna start seeing the remainder of this year. And so.
Unless rates come down.
It's, I can tell you this, it's a difficult time to be an engineer right now, just trying to solve the need of the community, still trying to be optimizing in regards to the efficiency we want to see in our pumping and treatment, and then be beholden that there's a limited pocketbook that we want to stretch every dollar.
And I think when you guys I think when we were reviewing the CIP projects, I think they looked a little bit higher to me than normal because I think you guys were putting some cushion in there because you guys were anticipating some of this inflationary costs. And I think it's ballooned even more than what you guys even thought.
That's the same sentiments that we see with other sister cities, agencies.
Armando, in general, what's your approach to like future capacity? So let's say, for lack of better terms, so this is, I'm gonna use CFS for it. So let's say in this, you need 25 CFS, but in the future, you see that you might need 50 CFS for the flow. So how do you approach design in terms of, do you say, well, we're gonna replace that one pump that'll pump from 25 up to 50, or do you plan it and engineer it out where you can like drop in maybe a smaller pump that would add? What's the general approach in the engineering on that?
Good question. I'll address it twofold, one on treatment and one in collection, and let me just focus on the collection first. So we do have flow monitoring that we do throughout, once every 5 years, where we put out devices out in the manholes and we actually measure for long-term. And we're trying to anticipate diurnal curves and trying to anticipate what really is the flow. In addition to that, we look at population projections. And so we have a master plan that we update also every 5 years. And so not only are we measuring what we see, but we're also measuring where population is going. And those two, I think in our sense of worlds, it's easy. You put math, you come out with the sense, and you put a curve, and you'll be able to put not only what the flow is, but then what the projection is. And so you know where it's coming, you know where it's going. The criticality here is the infrastructure. Sometimes it degrades faster than you thought. So you have to listen to Dan's Charlton's group. They do a phenomenal job in regards to doing a lot with low labor and trying to make this infrastructure work. For example, lift station 5511, it says in on the tag of the pump that it does a lot more, but it doesn't, just because it's already aged. Just like my dad's Chevy, it just doesn't do what it wants. My dad wants it to do. I know I'm gonna get a lot of bad rap on that one. Sorry.
But he's not getting rid of that Chevy though. No
He
matter
kept
what.
it for a long, long time until my mom decided to do something different. It was my mom's force. And so, you have to anticipate that the facility has aged out. And that's the most difficult part because that's when the prioritization comes in. That's when the CIP development comes in. That's when you have to connect with the boots on the ground that tell you the story. You have the backstory, you have the forward story, then you have to get the current story. And in the long term, that's what you do within the collection system. On the treatment side, you have to be a little bit more careful because the flows are a lot bigger. The peaks and the lows are more drastic. And so you have to not only design wastewater facilities for the low diurnal curve so it can keep operating, but then you also have to be careful on the peaks because the peaks are coming. You have to be able to address it. So it gets a little bit more complicated on the treatment side, but you look at more closely on the low and peak. And then on lift stations, you look past, forward, and present, and you right-size the facility. I hope that answered your question.
It does, thank you. Great description.
It's funny,
Thank you.
that was an interview question that we had for our sanitation associate engineers.
So how many years do you go forward? I mean, do you want to plan for 20 years or 50 years or how far?
For something as big as this, we do look at long-term horizon, 25 years out.
25?
And 25, 30, and we really pay attention on the population trend because it does big swings at those out years. And that's what happened here. We really looked outside and we try to rescope, right-size it, because we were seeing financial inflationary pressures right when we were designing this project. So we got rid of all the
It's
fluff.
probably really difficult to predict that Mecca area for 20 years or 30 years in the future of what, because it could explode.
It could.
Or it might not. I mean, you really don't, there's no way of knowing what's going to happen out there. It has a lot of potential, especially now that they're going to have infrastructure, water and this, yeah.
Well, the county is chipping in because they have an initiative to increase the amount of affordable housing units to try and get some of the folks out of these palancos that are causing, quality of life issues in a broader sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not just Polancos. They got
Right.
the big ones too. Oasis. Okay, well, interesting. Is there a motion to approve this item 8?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Oh, second.
There's a motion, a second. Good presentation. What year is the Chevy? I'm just curious,
It's 71, I believe, or 69, something.
Oh, yeah.
Classic. It's classic, yeah.
Like an Impala or what is it?
It's a station wagon.
Oh, Chevy station wagon. All right, so motion, a
It
second.
was a family car.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0.
Thanks, Armando.
Thank you.
They just lose cylinder capacity, right? Because you get carbon buildup inside the,
Yeah, you can
Cylinders.
do that clean
you
out. I
you
like
lose
carbon.
capacity, yeah. Huh. All right, so on to D. Approve bids for this well rehab project. Good
Sabrina, good morning.
Good morning. So this is our request to approve solicitation of bids for our well rehabilitation project. This is Phase 3. This is also our fiscal year 23-24 strategic initiative. So the well that we've selected is well 5662-1. It's in the Valley Production Zone, so that's one of our higher demand zones. It's a much needed well. We did take the well offline in 2017 due to high nitrates. So part of this project will rehabilitate the well, install a packer so that we can increase production in the lower zones and decrease production in the upper zone. We right now have $350,000 in this fiscal year. If we go out to bid, then that will carry over into next fiscal year, because it does take time to procure the equipment. So we'll plan for $100,000 for the following fiscal year.
Okay.
Sabrina, when was the well built and how deep is it?
It was built in 1978, I believe it was, and it's around 1,300 feet. It is a fairly unique well, so this is what we call a telescoping well. So it's around 16 inches in diameter and then reduces down to 12 inches.
16 inches.
So it's a little bit strange. You don't really see those type of wells anymore. But we have looked at it. We can install the packer, and we can get this well back online at a production of around 1,700 gallons a minute is what we're hoping for.
So a packer is it like eliminates the perforations that are higher up in the column?
Yeah, so it's an inflatable rubber type, kind of, if you imagine an inner tube. So we'll go down about 700 feet, install that packer. We'll have a 10-foot stinger at the bottom of that, but our well will actually be installed at around 225 feet. So the well is actually set higher, and it's a really long stinger. The packer's at the bottom. And what that allows us to do is, because it's inflatable, over time, if we needed to rehab for any given reason, or perhaps even lower deeper than that, we have the ability to do that.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. So well, where's the nitrogen coming from?
The nitrate, I mean, I'm not sure in this specific area, but generally speaking, septic tanks tend to contribute to that. Nitrate tends to be naturally occurring in the upper sections. I'm not particularly familiar with the valley zone, if that's a contributing factor, but that tends to be the case.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough.
Have we done this before?
We have.
With an inflator?
We have, yes. Yeah, I believe it was in 2018, but don't quote me on that. We did do it one other time. Desert Water Agency actually has 2 other wells with this very similar thing. They actually have that at their treatment plant, though, for their recovery wells.
What's the material that's used that you inflate?
I don't know specifically, but the closest thing is like a very thick rubber, although it's not specifically rubber, because it has to be able to withstand groundwater conditions. You also have to exercise the packers over time, because what you don't want it to do is to actually mold to the casing, because then it'll damage the packer. But it's basically just a compressor, and it inflates very similar to an inner tube,
Wow, that's
but more
pretty amazing.
industrial.
I
An
never
industrial
had
inner
either.
tube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So question, is this well down? Do I understand that?
It is, yep. It was taken offline in 2017, and it hasn't been in production since.
So where is the water delivery coming from? Is there another well close by, or?
We're using the other wells in the system and running them longer. So this will help to alleviate, the burden on those other wells that we have remaining. But we do need increased production in the valley zone.
So just because I'm curious, I want to go back to this. Instead of putting new joints in at the bottom, this goes in and wraps around where you may have some holes in the joints. Is that correct? And you inflate it? Is that what?
No, yeah. So there's a couple different ways that we could go about this. You can do what's called swedging. So when you're looking at the casing itself, sorry, I'm getting animated with my hands. But the casing itself, you can actually blank off the louvered sections. We don't necessarily want to go that route because it's permanent. There's also some other risks. This is a fairly old well, so we do have to be careful about how we rehab it. But the packer itself, I should have brought a diagram that probably would have helped. In the pump column pipe itself, typically at the bottom you'd have your bowls, and then you have a short stinger at the bottom. Instead of 10 feet, we're going to go another several hundred feet, and at the bottom of that section we're going to install the packer that will inflate. So we're only pulling from the lower sections of the well, and the upper sections are kind of blocked off. I mean, as best we can, because the louvers are still there. So in theory, you could have some transmission, but it's much slower. And so we're just trying to get under the MCL. So that's our goal with this. Not to zero.
For the nitrates, I see.
Yes. Yeah.
You've described it very
Yes,
well, and
yeah.
I have a very good picture of it. When the bids come back, have a diagram, and that's a great idea that you had. So
Yeah, I think that would be
looks like we
helpful.
have this interest in it, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think sometimes
yeah,
as
fascinating,
engineers,
too.
we just think like, oh, it's so simple, right? But I think sometimes just explaining it is a unique process. I think most people have seen wells, but the packer, it's been around for quite a while. It's not as common as a traditional pump column assembly. But I can certainly do that, and I think it'll help just in terms of showing a picture of what
Yeah,
we're
no,
doing.
perfect, thanks.
Yeah, and we are hoping that the bids aren't coming in double. So that is a goal. Part of it too, when we're going out to bid, we're trying to think of potentially what could go wrong. So we're anticipating replacing the motor pump bowl column assembly. The motor itself, it is possible that they could rehab that. So that is part of the work for them to take a look at that to hopefully result in some cost savings. So we're only replacing it if we have to, but until they get in there, we won't know for sure the scope of the work, but hopefully not 700,000.
Good.
Very good. I'll move approval.
Second?
Yeah, good. We have a motion and a second. Yeah, I appreciate the detail also. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks,
Pass
Sabrina.
4-0. Finance.
Carla,
Hello, good morning.
good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, board members. You have 6 different resolutions in front of you, 2 for, well, actually 3 for U.S. Bank. One is including the Chandler Asset Management transactions that are under their professional investment portfolio. The TPIF, which is a county investment pool. Your California Asset Management Trust, which is managed by PFM, and then also the LAIF, which is managed by a state controller. These resolutions were last updated, the majority of them in November of 2022 when Rick Aragon became the finance director. And then the LAIF and the CAMP were approved in February of 2023 to be added. So these are all cumulatively together requested to be updated. All of the current sign-offs will remain. So that includes our general manager, our 2 assistant general managers, and the clerk of the board. None of those would be changing. And just as a reminder, any financial transactions of the district do require a dual approval and verification, and so there's a lot of internal controls. Adding one person doesn't mean that person has all the authority to do anything. Wires, for example, require an initiator and an approver, and then we do have 2 accountants that look at our bank statements on a daily basis for all of our transactions and make sure those are properly recorded. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have regarding any of these resolutions.
I appreciate these are being done now because of your promotion. Congratulations again.
Yes, thank you.
But you will be backfilling your position as controller, and then
Yes.
these will again come back for,
No, the controller does not have any signing authority. It would only be
Okay.
the finance director.
okay. Just wanted to clarify, thanks.
Can all
Which would
these
explain
be
why
done
she
in one
doesn't
motion, or do you need separate motions? Sorry, Jeff,
These can all be done in one motion. It's the same subject matter.
one motion. I'll make a motion to approve the resolutions.
I'll second.
Good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Pass 4-0.
Thanks, Carla.
Okay, 9A written communications, we did have this one that was included in the, I guess as a late addition
It
with
was
the board packet.
correct. At the time the packet was published, we did not have any, and this came in after the publishing of the packet, so it was amended to include this.
Right, okay, thanks. Board comments, do we, let's see, Director Nelson?
Well, it's nice to see a little rain coming. You know, all of the snowpack and rainfall is 60% of an average, so 60% of average sort of in that range. So in general, so it's good to see some of these coming. They're pretty warm, so the snowpack's just like really small. So kind of we still have a good month to go before spring hits, right? And so hopeful. That's really all I have.
Okay.
No comments. Good. I don't know if I have any comments, but it was wet out there. I always want to know that our systems are working correctly. I'm assuming since we had no news that they worked well yesterday. With an inch, we had
Regional projection works very well.
regional project, yeah, of course. Yeah, there were local flooding that wasn't necessarily our responsibility. Good. Any board requests for future agenda items? I don't have any either. Good, on to meetings. So we're gonna move through several of these. Let's see, January 11th, the Coachella Valley Conservation Director Bianco. And then you had the energy.
I wasn't at the energy, but we went pretty lengthy into our fiscal year report. We also had some reports on 30 by 30 grant funds on natural resources. And then there was an effort to reinstate the tipping fees that Coachella Valley CVCC collects, there was a lengthy discussion. There'll be more on that to come.
Good. Let's see, Director Nelson, January 12th.
Yeah, that Section 5 contractors meeting received a current status of the 2026 renegotiating negotiations. That reported on Upper Basin, Lower Basin meeting in Denver. That was a bit of a challenge. Ongoing discussions with the Lower Basin with Arizona, Nevada, and California, how to address the structural deficit of 1.2 million acre feet and under drier hydrologies. So that was that.
Good. Let's see here. Did you get this next one on the 15th?
Yeah, I'll do the 15th. So on February 29th at the Cal State campus, here locally, there's a AWWA conference. That's American Water Works Association. Robert's deeply involved in that. And at that conference, it's a one-day conference, and it's going to talk about Colorado River issues, focus on that. Robert's on a panel, so we met to discuss kind of strategy of his participation in that, and appreciate that, Robert, thanks. So on his panel are Jim Lockhead, former Denver Water guy, Black and Veatch, Michael Galadon, Jennifer Pierre from the State Water Project. So that's kind of an interesting twist to have a State Water Project on a Colorado River panel, but it's kind of to highlight the interconnections of California's water supply and the annual cuts that California takes from the State Water Project when 100% like last year is never given. So, 5% and how that interacts with Colorado River. And Tina Shields is on that panel as well. Afternoon late panel will be pretty interesting. Chuck Collum and Adele Hoskalel. So that'll be an interesting panel. So great call, Robert. Thanks.
Galadon used to be a reclamation employee and applied for the assistant general manager position here when we had a short vacancy.
Oh, okay. Got it. Good.
Good. Let's see here. We had the study session on the 16th. We had the Agua Caliente mediation principals meeting on the 17th, which I don't need to go into detail on. I see the Disadvantaged Community Task Force. I did not make that on the 17th. Director Strada. Let's see, Salton Sea Authority on the 18th. Director Aguilar.
So, John, I was actually scheduled to participate by Zoom on that call, and they had pretty significant technical issues, both with Zoom and with call-in. So I was not able to participate. But for the record, it was not for lack of trying.
We tried to help you as well.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
Made some calls.
Appreciate that.
We couldn't get 'em on.
Technology. And then there was the Sites Reservoir Committee on the 19th, Director Nelson.
Yeah, so that the Sites Authority Board as well as the Reservoir Committee had a joint meeting. As you know, we're involved with sites at 10,000 acre feet of participation, and there's a lot going on with that. So I listened in. We're going to be asked to sign a benefit and obligation contract within the next year or so. So it's kind of interesting to hear how all that sausage is made. let's see, they approved submissions for a 404 and 401 permit, so that's a big deal with the feds. And they were reviewing their programmatic biological assessment for the construction and ops programs in there. So very, very interesting meeting. Robert's on the reservoir committee and does a great job, asks great questions. So.
Good, thank you. And the well, you had a speaking
Oh,
engagement,
yeah,
huh?
so
Tell
the
us about that.
water education, wait.
Yep, that's right. Water education for Latino leaders.
For Latino leaders, yeah. Had a 3-day event here, new class coming in. It's a 6-week leadership program, probably a lot like Water Education Foundation does. And I think they do a marvelous job in getting around, but they ask folks to come in and instead of giving a presentation or a PowerPoint or anything like that, they just ask us questions. So you sit there for about an hour and they pepper you with questions and it's actually a pretty enjoyable experience. And they're just asking how it all works, right? And so this go around, there are a number of local participants, City of Coachella, council members, and an IID director. So that was pretty fun.
It was on Sunday?
It was on Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, ESQ covered some of that in their reports on Monday and on Tuesday.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. I don't mind going in on Sunday and doing something like that.
Yeah, good. All right, that takes care of the list, right?
Yes, sir.
A couple of extras that I had. On the 19th, Jim and I met with Paul and Dean on one of our ongoing litigations. Yesterday, the 22nd, I attended the Desert Valleys Builders Association board meeting, which was pretty standard stuff. I wouldn't say anything unusual happened there. Any other meetings for anyone else? No.
Nope.
We got them all?
No.
Good. Is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Passed 4-0. General manager report.
Nothing this morning, sir.
Council report.
I will pass as well, because I did
Wow.
the full slate.
All right, the floor is open. Department reports. Come on.
Okay, not everybody at
Got
once.
all this time. Hearing none. This brings us to the closed session. At this time, the board will recess into closed session to discuss the items on the agenda. We will reconvene and report out once that's
Who do
done.
you want to do?
So what's a 401?
Okay.
We're okay.
Yeah, if I just get my leg to work.
Mike's,
Okay.
you're on? Yep.
All right, so the regular meeting is reconvened. We do have one item to report out. Jeff, would you please handle that?
Yes, Mr. President, on item E regarding the case involving the Sierra Club versus DWR, on a motion by Director Aguilar and a second by Director Nelson in a 5-0 vote, the board authorized the filing of an appeal as appropriate and in 4-0, authorize the filing of an appeal as appropriate and in consultation with DWR and the other respondents. That was the end of the closed session.
Thank you. And with no further business, we're adjourned. Thanks, guys.